Welcome. I'm Sue Landay. This is Show and Share. And today I am joined by Nancy Priest, and Matthew St. Jean from VirtualGlass. And they have the company they started actually is called Glass of Learning. And they focused on leadership training and team development and organizational health, change management, all of these power skills or soft skills or whatever we're calling them these days. And during the pandemic, when everything was kind of all topsy-turvy, and they'll tell you more about this, they developed this platform that's now available to all of us. So even though I keep hearing that we're going to be doing more and more in-person training, there's still a pretty big need, I think, for online tools. So, if everybody could take a moment and, if you can, unmute yourselves, turn on your video, and let's give a warm welcome to Nancy and Matthew. I'm going to count down from three, two, one, so that we can all say hello. Ready? Three, two, one.
Hi.
Hi.
Hello.
Welcome
Hi.
back.
Hello.
I just love that. Okay, there's actually full transparency. Two reasons I do that. One is because I like the energy that it creates for all of us. But I've also heard that if we hear from you all in the first 5 minutes of a session, you're kind of more likely to continue chatting throughout. And that's kind of the vibe that we like to create here. So that's the end of my intro. Nancy, I'm going to hand it to you. And
Okay,
welcome. Happy to have you
thank
today.
you. Thank you, Sue. Matthew and I are delighted to be here and share with you what we have created as a result of the pandemic. So lots of great things actually came out of the pandemic. So I'm going to share my screen with you, and we are actually going to, first of all, do you see that, Matt?
Yep.
Yep. Okay.
Lindsay.
Yes. Perfect. Okay, you see Glass
Yep.
of Learning? Perfect. All right. Okay. So, as Sue says, we are Glass of Learning. We have been in business for 10 years, going on our.
It's 12:03.
Oh, I'm going to try to mute somebody. Hold on. Let's
Okay.
see.
Okay.
Sorry about
Going
that.
on our 11th year. And so so I am the owner and the founder of Glass of Learning. I'll be your facilitator today. Matthew is our director of operations. And you can also connect with us in the chat function, and Matt will read the notes and keep me posted. So I first want to take a poll here to find out what your goals are in regards to virtual learning. So Sue, are you okay to launch that?
Yep, I'm doing it right now.
Okay, perfect.
They look like mother and daughter. They look the same.
Hold on. I did the wrong one. Hold on.
Oh,
Who put me in charge here?
Matt, why don't you do that?
I don't think Matt is a co-presenter right now.
Okay.
Hold on. More. Oh, here it is. Additional information. Here we
You
go.
can relaunch the poll.
Okay, should be okay now. Can you all see it? What is your goal for attending today? Networking, new activities for virtual learning, looking for hybrid tools, looking for a primary platform for virtual learning, or other. And feel free to add that in the chat.
Why in our space?
Yeah.
All right. We have 93% participation.
Excellent.
Let's
Thank
say.
you.
Okay, I'm going to end poll in 3, 2, 1. Share results.
Perfect. Okay. All right, so thank you so much for responding. So I see new activities for virtual learning. Well, we certainly have a lot of those. Also hybrid tools, we can definitely help you with that. And Networking is always good for, so you'll get an opportunity to, dialogue a little bit. And if anyone wants to learn more or play some of the activities, you're welcome to stick around. Okay. So thank you for sharing that. This is a platform that is its own individual platform that houses all of the activities that we have. So we'll share that with you. And what do we have something else in the chat?
Nope, we're good.
Not yet.
Nope.
Okay. All right. Great. Okay. Okay. And we have another, so I'll tell you what the agenda is that we want to share. I want to tell you a little bit about the history of VirtualGlass. The reason that we need to understand the history is to understand why it is what it is. We will demonstrate the platform. We'll show you behind the scenes in the platform and how that works and how you can get involved if this is something that you're interested in and want to take part in through Trainer's Warehouse. So just a little bit about the story of VirtualGlass. The year was 2020. Well, 95% of our learning that we did at Glass of Learning was classroom-based. So we went into the classroom, we ran the learning, and that was what we did for the most of everything we had. Well, as we know in that year, that very important year, that was COVID-19, the year of the pandemic, the beginning of the pandemic, I should say, and without warning, we were no longer able to run our classroom training. And that is our business. That is what we do. So we had to quickly pivot and think of something else.
And I think you weren't alone.
No, we all remember that journey because it was so sudden and so different from what we had been doing that we had to really quickly think. The other thing for us in 2020 is that we were contracted to deliver a 6-hour, 6-day leadership program. So it's 6 days, 6 modules. Also, we have a 6-day manager program for leaders. So we were contracted to do both of those in the year 2020. Our learning is experiential, it's hands-on, and it's interactive. So that was what we were dealing with. And our audience for those 2 contracted deliverables were manufacturing leaders. So that set up a whole different set of now what are we going to do with these audiences? With manufacturing leaders, a lot of them do not have the same level of technical skills. Some of them don't even have a quiet office or their own PC. So we had to think about options. So we started looking around, as I'm sure you did, at the plethora of opportunities that were out there in terms of platforms. The challenge was because we already had interactive activities, we already had experiences. It was like, this one might fit this, but this might not fit that. And remember our audience, they could not be logging into a variety of different areas. So as much as we looked at all of those different platforms, nothing quite fit what we needed to be able to do. Everything was like a kind of, we could do something here. We tried a couple, and it was just so much of a dynamic for our participants, it wasn't going to work. So we happen to have a wonderful programmer who has done something else for us. And we went to him and we said, hey, we have all of these experiential activities that are, tactile and hands-on. Could you take those and turn them into activities that are available on their own platform? He said, that's the favorite thing that I like to do, is to turn games into activities. I'm like, well, we need you. So we also knew that we needed a one-stop shop. With our audience, we could not have them going to different platforms. Manufacturing is known to be an industry that is hacked a lot, so they have very deep firewalls. We can't even use a Google Share Doc with them. They just.
So what's also, Nancy, when we were talking before, what's also kind of interesting to me about your sharing these goals is that I think that as Nancy discusses these, they'll all kind of ring true for all of us. Mary said we have that instruction, that challenge as well. And so all of these were built into the solution that she's about to show you. So that's why we're kind of tying these together.
Right.
So yeah.
Thanks, Sue, because that was the big thing. We wanted you to understand the constraints we were up against. Maybe just remind you of that time in place, because I'm sure all of you were experiencing that too. Because we kept thinking, are we the only ones that have this problem where we cannot seem to make this work with what we're seeing out there? The other goals that we had is that we wanted to replicate the classroom. In the classroom, we do some really great stuff that's been challenging virtually, like discussions. You know how we go to the flip chart, we take great notes, people capture all this information. We're like, well, how do we do that without having like, some weird platform we're trying to look at and type up? So that was an important piece. It needed to be experiential because that's what we promote ourselves on, which is learning by doing. We also have a lot of interactive activities, and we needed to have those, which is where we do some teaching and then people do an activity as a test for understanding. And of course, we wanted the group networking. We needed it to be varied, fun, and engaging, meaning that, we're doing 6 days of leadership training for someone. We did not want the platform to be so predictable that our participants could go, oh, I know how this one's going to go. I know how this one's going to go. So, that was the joy of having our own programmer who could go, no, I can make them all start the same and end up all different. So that was an important piece that we were looking for. It needed to be fun because we all know that we retain more learning when we're having fun. And we needed to enable hybrid learning to ensure that we can have both virtual and in person, and they can happen at the same time. Because all of the activities that we are going to show you, we have in a tactile format, which is live and can be done in person. And so then that's what we wanted to dovetail so that we could do it hybrid. So these were the goals that we had going into this. And this is what you will see as we look at the platform, because from this VirtualGlass was born. Play on words with our glass of learning. This was why we came up with this particular title. What we quickly found out too is that these activities could be used for a lunch and learn. Remember, in the pandemic time, it was really hard to get people to carry on that dynamic and not be sort of one-dimensional. So having a lunch and learn was a way to bring people together. We could replicate the classroom and do each and everything that we had done in the classroom. We could have teaching modules where if you just wanted to focus on emotional intelligence, we could do just an activity on emotional intelligence. We could have hybrid learning, and we could have group discussions, which was another thing that we found the platform very helpful for, because sometimes people just wanted to come together and talk about stuff and how are we going to fix stuff and how are we going to solve problems. And we had ways that we could do that as well.
All right, so show us the stuff.
All right, so we have 3 categories. We have the experiential activities, which are standalone. We have activity-based facilitation. We have discussion groups. This is the list of what we have available on VirtualGlass. So we're going to show you a little bit about what that looks like, but I just wanted to show you how we've been able to break that down into these 3 categories.
Yeah, so these were all separate little modules, and we can come back to this screen and share it with you all. So yeah, emotional intelligence, there's assessments, there's team building games, reviews, feedback. Yeah. So you're going to do one from each of these categories, right?
Yes, I'm going to show
Okay.
you a preview. Now, the thing to remember with VirtualGlass is that you will always have 2 windows open. And the reason being is that one is your login platform, which you brought the group together on. It could be Teams, it could be Zoom, it could be something else. That's what brings the people together, puts them into Teams, and that's where the sound comes from. The second tab that you have open in Chrome, or it would be VirtualGlass, and this is where the activity happens. Now, people instantly forget that they have 2 open, and they're only looking at the activity because the sound is naturally happening just like it is right now. So I just want to help you understand how that works. So I'm going to show you aggregate, which is an experiential activity, peer to boss, which is that transition that happens in manufacturing, particularly when you go from being a peer to a boss, and how we do a discussion forum. I'll also show you the behind the scenes, which is the admin side of the platform, which shows you the past data from sessions, who's logged in, what the PDFs are. We have all the notes in terms of PowerPoint, leaders notes, key learnings, the setup, everything is there. So I am going to stop sharing this one. And I am going to share the platform. All right. So this is VirtualGlass, and this is what it looks like. And each one of these is one of those units of training. So this first one is called aggregate. And what you will see on here on the platform is it tells you the name of the activity. Everything has a logo. It gives you a little bit of an outline of what it's about. It tells you how long the activity takes. It gives you all of this information, like what's the activity, the key learnings, the introduction, the instructions, the debrief, and all the resources like PowerPoints, leaders' notes, all those things. Because for every activity, we started up with a PowerPoint that says, here's what you're going to see,
I got you, man.
how the activity works. So let's look at that particular activity. That sounds better.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Thanks, you guys. Sorry.
Thank you. Yes, in this particular activity, the architect is creating the plans for a new condo complex, but he quit the job before he finished the job, something that we may be familiar with. And so your team has to complete the architect's drawings on the ground floor, and you only have the architect's notes to do this. So this is what you see when you go into the activity. There is a view, which is we call the grid view. This is like a replication that you can use to recreate that ground floor layout. Now, these blocks can be moved into the shape based on the clues that you have. And this information here tells you what the colors are. There's fitness, shopping, parking, and dining. Those are the areas you need to recreate. Now, here are the clues, and the clues are the architect's notes. Now, there's 24 pieces of information. 24 pieces of information is a lot of information, but sometimes on the job, we have a lot of information. But the very first thing we tell teams to do is, and everyone can do this when they're logged into the activity, is to identify as they read the clues. Does that look important? Does that look not important? Does that look very important? And then that will help you to filter the information and focus on the most important information first, and then add in. So you have everyone on the team can look here, can resort these clues. What's interesting about that, and as facilitators, you can think of all the debrief points that start floating through your mind, because we can all do that. You might have just recategorized how I categorized that, which is a problem when, we're not really working together and I thought it was important and you didn't think it was very important. But with the information, if we say, look, this one says the condo complex consists of 12 equal cubes, the leader is the only one who can move the cubes. And so leader, we only need 12 cubes. So whatever you hear, only be looking to move 12 of them in here, even though there's 24 cubes. We're only going to move 12 of them. Okay, that sounds like a piece of important information. So how the activity works is they continue to move through the cards. What we do is, as I say, we start with a PowerPoint that says, here's what it looks like, here's what you're going to do. Now we get into the activity. Then we come back to the PowerPoint and we say, let's go back and look at some of the clues that we think are very important. And they are often clues that people completely overlook. This is the first one that we would say is very important, which is the top right aligns with the grid. Because if we don't know where to start in lining up a grid that has 24 spots, then we're going all over the place. But if the very first one lines up in the top right-hand corner, that's how we start. So pieces of information like that. And then this is all about problem solving. It's about how the team works together. It's about, some can see things that others cannot see. And that's the beauty of this one. Now, what happens is when the team actually gets it in the right format, instantly their screen will change and say congratulations, and it puts a nice fancy layout as if it is a blueprint for this main floor. So that's how that particular activity works. Questions on that?
And if you have more, how many people do you recommend for one grid?
What we recommend is that we have teams of 5 people. We think 5 is a good amount of people that to work together. If it's too little, it's hard to go through the information. If it's too many, 5 to 6 you could work with. More than that, we would say let's break them into more teams.
About how long does it take to do an activity? Do you have guidelines of?
We do. Those
Okay.
guidelines are, I'm going to end that current activity. It says, are you sure? Yep. When we go back here on the screen here, each activity will show you how many minutes long it is. So that particular one is 45 minutes.
Does that include the debrief?
Yeah, that includes the debrief.
Okay.
Yeah, that includes
And
the
you
debrief.
you told me before, you can kind of jump into the different groups and see how how they're going,
Yes.
right?
So I'm going to show you the next one, and we will do that. The next activity we want to show you is one that has teaching that goes with it. This one is transitioning from peer to boss. And I'm sure that all of you have, if you do any work with leaders, that's always a challenge when people go from now being, one of the peers to now suddenly being the leader of my friends. It's a very challenging transition. So this one is a teach. We need to get people to learn and understand. So we're saying here, this is a choose your own adventure. We've had those storybooks for our kids. That's what this one is. And so we say the team begins with a card. You're going to make choices that are listed on the what's on the card. You're going to talk it through. And we want you to make a few notes on your own about what stood out for you. And then we're going to have a dialogue about the situations that you have been through. So every one of them starts up with the setup. Now this says there's a little bit of information here. Here's some important people. This is Eric. He's been your friend since high school. So here's a little bit of information, and we're going to hear about Eric. And then there's Monica. And you got to know her through your kids and your families get together. So she's somebody important in it. Now, when we look at the scenario, the first scenario will scroll in on the screen and we can read the situation. And then we go proceed and it gives you 2 choices. And you say, which choice do I want to make? And so with those choices, you can choose one. And I won't give you all the time to look at it, but they're going to choose one. And then the next situation will come up. Now, as a facilitator and a moderator, there are facilitators and moderators. I can go here to my menu and I can say, here's group 1. And if there were 5, 6 groups, it would show group 2, group 3, group 4, group 5, group 6. And then I could click on it and I could instantly pop in to see what's happening with their team. This is where I see where the activity's happening. I would go back into Zoom and change into the groups just like we always do when we're facilitating. So you see how I can visually look at it and go, oh, group 1's doing great. Group 2's going great. Oh no, group 3 looks like they need a little help. They're still on the first scenario. So I'm going to go back there and pop into group 2, group 3 and see what's going on. Questions on that?
And within this, are they you mentioned them taking notes. Are they taking notes within the platform so that you're capturing them? Or are they taking them kind of on the side and then sharing when you kind of bring groups together later?
For this particular one, we had them take the notes on the side, simply because of the way the dynamic of the platform worked. It was adding too much onto this particular piece. But we will show you ones where we are able to capture their notes.
Okay.
So in this particular one, because it is the dynamic of choose your own adventure, that's the piece that's happening here. We just wanted them to think about what's some of the things that are standing out for you that we want to talk more about, because that's when we do the debrief and we actually dialogue about it.
And I would also say, I mean, I don't know that if people are like looking at all of the prompts and reading through it right now, because there's a lot of inputs that we have. But when I was looking at this before, I was just sort of struck that it's not that there's an obvious, easy, single right answer. There's sort of benefits to both choices, and you live with consequences. And then you have different issues that come up because of a choice that you made. And so it's a really, although it's a choose this or that, it's it just has a lot of body into it. It has a lot of nuance for people to talk about. So I was just impressed as I was reading through that.
And that's the joy of what I like to do, quite honestly. And we also found that we could do it in a simpler version when we did it live. When we did it virtually, we actually had to make the case study more complex,
Hmm,
which was
interesting.
kind of an interesting dynamic for us, that it needed the complexity here because we did not want it to be an easy choice. Because when they're live, they're discussing more as they choose and they put it up. But this way here, the default is to just read it and pick, read it and pick. So we needed to make it more dynamic so that when people were reading it, it wasn't that easy to pick.
Hmm.
So that's how we go. So we end that activity. Now, I wanted to show you how a discussion can work. In this particular one, this discussion is one that we do every single time we do a discovery to start a new learning initiative. So we say leadership is a journey, it's not a destination. As you embark on this journey, we want to ask you these two things. So we start the activity, and here's what we want to ask. What does success look like? And this is where teams can type in whatever they want to type, and they can type as many as they want. And each one comes as a separate bullet. And the same with the obstacles. They can put that in there. And so each one, each one will show up as a different, and you can also go back in and you can change it if you don't like what you wrote.
Mhm.
You wanted to write it a little differently or whatever, but you can go back in and see that. Now, just to show you how this rolls up when we take notes is that the team will finish the activity. I will go here to my dashboard, to the activity dashboard, and I will say, let's end the activity and look at the results. And when we end the activity and look at the results, this is what I see. I will see team 1, group 2, group 3, group 4, all the groups, all the information that they just typed up there in that dialogue is right here. I can instantly make that a PDF and send it out to people.
Let me just interrupt 1 second. I think that Nora was saying that you're no longer sharing, but I am still seeing the sharing screen. Are others having that issue as well?
I'm still seeing the screen.
I'm
I
still
can,
saying,
I can still see it. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks for letting us know. Yes. So I'm going to end that activity. Okay, so all of these activities, as I say, are a little bit different. They have a different dynamic, a different way that they work. And we're happy to show lots more. We just want to be sensitive to the time. And I'm just going to show you the admin side of things.
So
of the
what, as
platform.
you're bringing that up, I just want to make another note. I did put a link to the Trainer's Warehouse listing of that product on our website because we list all of the experiences and we kind of sort them between, the games and discussions and leadership
So I'm telling
experiences
Pat,
and so
back to the
forth.
drawing board. Thanks for your assistance. I will share with you.
Okay, onward.
All right. Okay, so we can look at past session data. So this is a conference that I can see the activities that people did, and I can view the results. And this is where you see the summary of how people typed information in here. So people were adding situations into how they were going to work with shareholders. So this is how all the information rolls up. This is the great information that we get in the classroom that was hard to replicate in virtual. But because it has this consistent format, when we have participants going through a whole day of virtual learning, they get very familiar with the platform. They get very familiar with how they get in, how it's going to be set up, how they know who's on the team, all those types of things. And then that stuff makes it easy for people to go through this. We can also see if we want to know who the participants were. So this shows us who the participants were in that particular, I just have to go like this to close it, but it shows you the list of all the names of all the participants in that particular session. So sometimes that's an important piece that you want to look at to be able to go back and see what it is. You can change the theme. So this is white labeled so that yes, it will still say VirtualGlass, but you could, if you don't want it to be purple, you want it to be your own company colors, you want to add in your company logo, that's all possible to do here.
Nancy, we have a question. Can you touch base on how people access and get in? So I assume the facilitator has their login. Yeah, what happens? Thanks.
So what happens, that's a great question. For each facilitator, the way this is set up is that you can only have one facilitator. Like say, for example, Matt and I work for the same company, but if Matt wants to come into the system, he needs to log in separately as a facilitator. But I can also have people as moderators. So this is my list of.
I think the question might have been more around like how do people like participants get in? So you want to we could copy the link?
Sure.
Activity. I think that's probably
okay. So what we do is this here is a copy sign. So I'll just copy this and we put it into the chat. There.
Okay, so if we click that link, we'll see what it's like to be a participant.
Yeah. So if you click that link, then what happens is I can go here to where it says edit the groups. And what we will see here is we will see people start to log in.
Okay.
And once people log in, then we can sort them into groups. But remember, we would have to sort them into two sets of groups. One for VirtualGlass, which is the activity, and one for Zoom. We won't put you in separate Zoom groups right now, just because I think we all want to hear the same thing at the same time. So that's the different dynamic here to keep in mind.
Okay.
Make sense? So I'm going to take you out, Matt. Are you going to put them in teams, Matt?
Do you want me to?
Yeah.
Okay. But they should all be on the same team, right? If they're going to be in the same room.
I think
Yeah.
who asked it? Kathy. No. Katrina. Did that answer your question?
Yes, it did.
Yeah. Okay. Let's take a few more questions. Are people responding anonymously? Kathy was asking. I think that was when you were showing the discussion forum.
Okay.
And Kathy, feel free to jump in if you need to.
Yes, they are. Because
Kind of. I mean, they're in a
happens-
group, right? They're in a group.
Yeah.
So if you, depending on how you break the people up on a team, so if we're in a small breakout room, there could be 4 or 5 of us, kind of like if you think of the classroom, you got 4 or 5 people around a flip chart, one person's taking notes. It's the same idea as that. And then you come back to the group and you share the results. And you could then debrief what people said and how they responded.
So then your answer is, this is Kathy, that no, they're not anonymous.
Not in this particular one. But when we do, so for example, when we do bring and brag, it's
And I guess I was really asking when you went to the backside and you were looking at all the different comments that folks were making. I'm just wondering whether knowing that your response is anonymous allows for people to be more free to express whatever they want to express in tight in the context of all of this.
And that is true, Kathy, because if you think about the classroom, that was always our goal, to replicate what happens in the classroom. We do everything in the classroom as teamwork. So it doesn't matter that Kathy said it, or that Matthew said it, or that Sue said it. What matters is that the team had a conversation and here's what the team came up with. So that's why in that particular activity, what we want to mostly know is we want to build that camaraderie, we want to build that teamwork, that networking that they're doing, and we want to hear what the group has to say. And then they feel safe. When we do this particular activity, because just wanted to show you the dynamic of what the site's possible, this one is a bring and brag, share and steal, which is we do later in the program where we say, okay, here's an opportunity to brag about what you've been doing, and somebody else can share that. You share it with other people. Maybe somebody else will say, I had never thought of that. In this case, it will tell your name when you typed it in, because you know how we're each individually logged in. I'm the host and the moderator. So therefore, yeah, that's how it shows up for me when I put one. If you put one in, it would show your name. So, but this is the only activity that we have that where it has a specific name. Everything else we're trying to do as a team. Make sense?
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Other questions? There's some in the chat that like about DISC and some other questions that I think Matt has responded to.
Okay.
Are there other questions that folks have? Or I know that it's we're past the half hour. I know some people might have to jump off. And as we said earlier, we're happy to stay on. Nancy can show a few more modules if you'd like to see more. But, you know, if you have questions and then need to hand off, we can do that. And then need to jump off, we can do it afterwards.
Absolutely.
Other questions?
Yeah, like I'm being in that this debrief.
Oh, I'm
CJ,
sorry, I don't hear.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, the disc debrief activity. Is that for just one person, or is that designed for groups as well? And if so, how many?
Everything on here is designed for groups, but here's the interesting thing with this particular thing is that so we do DISC conflict, we do DISC work of leaders. If we were to begin that particular activity, then what we do is in the first one, you're going to choose a set of cards that you are provided. What we do is because DISC is an instrument that we send out, and we get the reports electronically, we already know who is what profile. And so what we do is we set up the teams based on their profile. So when we launch you into groups,
let me ask you a question. So
yeah.
Is this where I send out DISC assessments to the individuals and then I could still use this, or will I have to send your DISC assessments to people and then?
You'd have to send the DISC assessments ahead of time. And then when you so that they've already completed the DISC assessment before they've come to the session.
Your DISC assessment.
But
It's CJ, you would give them the DISC. It's not coming from VirtualGlass.
okay,
No.
great.
It comes from whoever your DISC partner is, whatever that platform is. That's where it comes from. But once we have the DISC profile, we can set up the teams based on the profile.
Okay, fine.
So as soon as they come together in this activity, all the Ds are together. So they have a great conversation because they all like the same sorts of things, that type of thing.
Great. Other questions or other modules that you all might be interested in seeing? I do love, Nancy, how this emulates kind of being in person. We were talking before our call about folks going back to face a little bit more. And yet there's still a lot of folks who are trying to replicate that without the travel and replicate that online. And I think that there's still a really big need for this. And you know, it's fun to see all of those different games and modules kind of bringing our online experience to life in different ways.
So Nancy, if you had to list, if someone said, "Hey, tell me what's your fun activity," what would you?
What's a fun activity?
Yes.
Oh, well, I can, this is one you might be familiar with. This is called distortion. And the way that distortion works, if you can think of two, and maybe some of you already run this, two people sitting back to back, One person has a tanagram magnet board with 7 tanagrams, and the other person has a picture of what they need to recreate. We have been able to recreate that virtually. And it all depends on your profiles. So Cedric, I'm going to make you the contractor, and Sue, I'm going to make you the lead engineer. And here's what happens is that if you were in groups and I broke you into groups, and maybe already, Cedric, can you see on your own screen something different than I see on my screen here? No, you don't have it. You're not in a separate team. No. But what happens with this particular activity is this is what the picture is. It's a rabbit, and the contractor has a magnet board with these tanagrams. And so the contractor, because everything is by login, only sees the tanagrams. The engineer only sees the picture. And so the engineer is trying to describe the picture to Cedric to say, what piece he wants him to move.
Okay, so I might say start with a parallelogram that's like a slanted rectangle, and that's going to be your top piece.
Yeah. And then he's going to move that around. Now, because I am the moderator, I can't move it because this is what Cedric would have to move. But see how it says that Cedric is the contractor, Sue is the lead engineer, but then we also in person, we would have 2 people standing here who we call are the standing engineers, and they are silent. And the standing engineers can see both. They can see the rabbit card, and they can see the tanagrams, and they can see this going way off track. So all they have to do is tap in, and then there's on their screen, it will show, because what will happen is everyone else's screen will show that there's a little tap in. So you could tap into Sue, and as soon as they tap in, Sue's on her screen instantly changes to see everything, and the engineer who tapped in instantly changes to only see the picture of the rabbit. And now he describes where he saw it going wrong. So you see how this one's quite dynamic but it's very fun because it's just as fun. Now, the interesting thing that is really fun with this one is that we time everyone, but
Well, it's fun if you're watching. If you're not trying to build the rabbit, then it's fun.
But this is where the debrief is so powerful, right? Because it's like,
Right.
how many times, how long did it take you before you knew that piece was moved in the wrong spot? People go seconds. And how long did it take to tap in? And because it's on a computer, in the debrief, it shows you went 2 minutes before you tapped in, and it took you seconds to see that person had done it wrong. How many times does that happen on the job? Where we walk by someone when it took us seconds to know they did it wrong, and for 2 minutes, we let that person suffer and struggle and flounder, try and do their job. And so that is the powerful message of this and the power of virtual is because even though we would try to keep an eye on how often it took for people to change, this is now timed. So every single team can see how many times did you tap in? How frequently were those, was it between tap ins? Were there only sporadic tap ins? And that's why that team struggled so long, that type of thing. So all those add to the dynamic of the debrief of the whole activity for sure.
So
that's when
also
people
to
get a kick
answer
out of
your initial question about, what are the fun games? What are the fun tools? On our listing, I'll put this again into the chat. Hold on. Cancel, that wasn't right. We list the games, the team building games. Is that going? Come on, enter. So aggregate circle words is a game where participants have to organize a series of words into a logical order. County Fair is kind of a matrix logic puzzle, where the teams have to identify the winners of the county fair using 13 clues. We just saw distortion. Finding the point is a set of puzzle pieces that have to be properly assembled to create a pattern. On deck is a Sudoku-like activity where they have to organize a 4x4 grid of playing cards. So it's not Sudoku numbers, but like it uses playing cards. And then personify as sort of a win-win game where teams take turns placing game pieces on a grid and they have to gather, get a high score. So it's one of those kind of, co-opetition, how do we work together, negotiation games. And so those are sort of more the in the game category as opposed to the other facilitated, experiences and conversations or assessments and so forth.
Okay, thank you.
Now, in this particular activity, I see some of you are moving the cards, and that is fantastic because what happens in this activity, so you see here in the top right-hand corner is a list of who's on your team. So we have everyone on our team, and Cedric is the team leader. That's the one with the star. And so because everyone can move cards, what happens is you can move someone else's card, and then everyone gets all in a stir in this activity because it's like, hey, that's where I wanted it to be. Well, didn't seem right. It wasn't in the right order. And so how many times does that happen on the job where people are stepping on each other's sandbox and, having, not really understanding, who's going to take what responsibility. Now, when you do have something in the right, set in the right sequence, what you will see and this is that it will create we're looking to move, whoops, not that one, ace, kings, queens, and jacks only. And so
Nancy, I'm going to interrupt this for a second because we have a few questions about the debrief and what's in the PowerPoint. And so I'd like, if it's all right with folks, I think it might make sense to just shift gears and kind of take a look at the facilitation tools available.
Okay. So if, for example, we look at download the resources, download the presentation.
So there is PowerPoint, there's a debrief. All of that is part of the tools available right within that platform.
Yeah, so I'm going to share my screen and show you the PowerPoint. So this is the distortion activity. So it starts with all the setup, what you're going to see. This is what it would look like if we were in person, so that people understand the roles, because that's really what we want them to understand. We tell them the rules. Here's what it's going to look like. And we show them the different views of what it looks like. This is the tap in piece and what you see. And then we come back here. This one particular one is not the one with the debrief. We do have a debrief.
Oops. Nope.
The debrief is the debrief is in the summary of the activity. And so we have a recommended debrief there, but that debrief section is blank on all of them. So you can add whatever debrief in you would like. So we have recommended, but we leave that so that each person can customize it based on learning outcomes, etc.
So it's in the notes.
Yeah. So if you go this debrief section there on the left.
Oh. Okay.
Oops. So in part of my introduction, I forgot to tell you guys that Nancy and Matthew are a family team, a mother-son team, which is close to my heart, having worked with my dad. So in addition to being great colleagues with one another, they're really close.
Yeah, we've worked together for quite a few years, so it's a wonderful thing, really. So yes, this is so Matt, as you can tell, did most of the work. I'm the design behind the activities, and then Matt's the one who set all this up on VirtualGlass, so he knows this better than me. So you see how this breaks down, where it tells you in the debrief in round one, because there are 2 rounds. In the first round, after they feel like, phew, we finally figured that out. Oh my gosh, now we say you're going to have to cut your time in half. And how are you going to cut your time in half? Well, getting more coordinated as a team, tapping in more frequently, having a common language, not using weird words that we haven't used since grade 6 geometry and we don't really know what they mean anyway. Like those types of things are what comes out of it. And so we have the debrief questions, and then we say, about the idea of the control, because people feel like they do not have control. But what do they really have control? They have, I mean, because the rules are what the rules are, but they do have control over tapping in, keeping the team moving, that type of thing. And then we have round two, the debrief of ideas in round two. And well, this is how to prepare for round two. And then here's how to debrief for round two.
And as I
that's right.
recall, another piece of this is like, what's the purpose of the
Yes.
activity? And you have that right on that initial screen as well, right?
Yes, we have, whoops, we have that. So if
I think you
we
could,
have it
didn't you say you
here.
can just,
Click the
press
notes,
that
yeah.
information, that little icon at the bottom of each activity.
Is
And
where the
there's,
details are.
the explanation of the activity, the key learning points,
How you set it up.
all of that is really accessible.
And all the downloads that we have. So, we went to having a variety of facilitators. We also needed to have something that was tidy and in one place and a repeatable, reliable process so that everyone could be doing the same types of things.
Awesome.
And Sue, I was looking at your on your site, that price for a certain period of time, or meaning once you purchase it, is it a subscription or is it a one-time purchase, and you have access
Yeah, the
to all of them?
1350, as I understand, is for one facilitator to own it, basically. It's
Yeah,
not for a year,
no, it is,
right?
sorry, it is a 1-year subscription.
Oh, it is a 1-year subscription?
Yeah.
All right, we need to
Yeah.
make that clear in our
Sorry.
write-up. I thank you for catching that. So per facilitator per year.
Yeah.
Okay.
All of the activities.
And then if you go back to the little 3 lines at the top left, Nancy, there's also some tutorial videos as well on the site, some moderator info, and then how to use the admin features as well. So just a little bit of training there to help familiarize yourself with the platform.
Excellent. All right. I'm going to wrap it up there. I want to send out a huge, huge thank you to Nancy and Matt. This has been wonderful to see. As always, we'll hang on the line a little bit, but just want to say huge thanks to you guys.
So much. Thank you for coming and being part of it. We had a lot of fun creating the platform, and we're delighted to share it with you.